Topic is presentation aids. And actually, if you think about them, if you have presentation aids, like I have this PowerPoint, it really serves two purposes. First of all, certainly it helps the audience better understand and remember. But for the speaker, it adds some variety to the presentation. It helps me remember what I'm talking about, helps me keep organized. I'm not as stressed because it's already prepared. And hopefully I appear more professional and better prepared. Studies have shown that a 15 to 30-second video clip is equal to 10 minutes of verbal explanation. Now, aren't you glad I have a visual aid? Also, studies show that the audience that merely hears a presentation remembers about 10 to 15% of what they heard 3 days later. But the audience that both sees and hears what they've been told will remember about 70 to 80% 3 days later. Big difference. Why? Because we forget what we hear, but we remember what we see. For example, 9/11. A year after 9/11, we had a memorial service on WVU campus. It was at Woodburn Circle. And if I told you that thousands of people attended it and we had candles and it was very moving, you might get a picture in your mind, but it would be much better to just show you what that looked like. If you're going to use presentation aids, it's the same as preparing for a speech. They've got to be well organized, well done, easy to use, and you need to practice in advance. And you can use any number of different visual aids. With technology today, it's easy to incorporate an audio, video, and of course, there's always PowerPoint. For example, if I'm going to talk to you about statistics and I give you all these numbers and I talk about non-resident students and what they have to pay and I give you 3 examples, you're really not going to remember that. But if I show you on a graph or a chart and I say, look at the difference between non-resident students and resident students in these 3 disciplines, then that's more meaningful to you and easier to understand. Now, if you're going to use presentation aids, it goes without saying, they should be in good taste, non-offensive. You don't want to turn your audience off, especially if you're trying to persuade them. They should be relevant and meaningful and neat and attractive, large enough for everybody to see, easy for people to read and easy for you to use, and not overly complex. They should be very easy to understand. So prepare in advance. Practice using them in advance. If you're in a classroom or the audience is in front of you and there's an obstruction to their vision, maybe there's a lectern there, move it out of the way before you present. Explain your aid carefully. And here's an idea. If you're going to show something halfway through your speech, put it up right before you're going to refer to it and then put it away. Because if you keep it up there the entire time, the audience will be looking at that instead of you. Make sure that it's attractive and easily readable colors. And if you're holding something up, make sure you display it high enough and long enough for everybody to see. Now, if you're using PowerPoint, good white space, it should be readable, plain font, not a fancy font, but one that's easy to read. No text, but bullets. And the 8x8 rule, sometimes it's a 7x7 rule, is a pretty good one to follow. That is, no more than, for example, if you're going by 7x7, no more than 7 words to a line, no more than 7 bullets. Some people move that up to 8. Practice with both a light background and a dark background and see which one is better. In a large lecture hall that I used to teach in, I would prepare the slides both ways. One with a light background, one with a dark. And then when I got in there that morning before the students arrived, I would check it out to see which one worked best and was easiest for them to see. And that would be the one that I use. I always emailed it to myself, always had it on a jump drive because I just don't trust technology sometimes. So remember, bullets instead of text, and don't overcrowd it. That's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they use PowerPoints. Font should be easy to read. Look at these fonts. Some are easier than others. Use both upper and lower case. Don't put everything in uppercase because it's more difficult to read. And don't use text. This is incorrect. There are too many words here. Instead, use bullets. If you're using a whiteboard or a chalkboard, again, use a clean board. Make sure it's clean before you begin. Make sure there's an eraser and chalk up there for you. Pre-plan what you're going to write. Don't write but print. Avoid keeping your back to the audience too long. Keep talking while chalking. In other words, if you're writing, you should still be doing a little bit of talking. Use only key words. And while this is helpful, it's not as professional as using a PowerPoint, but sometimes you might be in a circumstance where there is no technology. Another 10-year rule that's used by nightly news shows that the language should be so simple that even a 10-year-old can understand it. So if you want to figure out if people can understand what you're talking about, explain it to a 10-year-old and see. Avoid passing handouts or visual aids through the audience. Avoid standing between the audience and your visual aid. Avoid displaying it where it competes with you for attention. And avoid talking to the visual aid instead of to your audience. Remember, what you wear is also a visual aid. So always consider the occasion, the climate, and how the audience will dress, and select clothing that is professional and comfortable. First impressions are typically based on what you look like and what you say. You are a visual aid.